this summer, it's a lot harder to care about Dr. Dour and Peach.
Mm.
I've got something in my teeth.
Yeah.
There we go.
This will be the thumbnail on YouTube. We're going to start with, we actually have been asking everybody what we call our Take 5, is what we're officially calling it. And it's just 5 questions about who you are as a person and you are as people and artists. So the first question is, what turns you on about the theater?
For me, it's the audience. I mean, just to be succinct, I'm never succinct, but I could elaborate. I feel like that's a definite answer for me. What I get excited about is audience.
For me, it's a slightly more complicated because recently, if you asked me that question, my answer would be nothing. For the past, I've been doing theater my whole life, and for the past 10 years or so, I've been running companies, and I've gotten pretty burned out. So the reason we shifted to this little 2-person plus whoever else we feel like inviting on format was largely because I was starting to really get disillusioned with any sort of larger scale theater, and starting to really be attracted to the variety and vaudeville kind of stuff. Whenever we got invited to do a spot at a burlesque show or some sort of variety performance, like the energy in that room of just like, we're not necessarily trying to tell a story, but we are very much people interfacing with you, with it. Maybe there's a character in between us, but there's not a whole story arc. It's just, we're all going to be in the space together and watch people do stuff.
Now, you mentioned story arc, but is it that's so crucially different, or is it the convention? I mean, there's a lot less artifice and convention.
Yeah.
So all those hundreds of years of theater history convention are, elements of it might be present in those rooms, but it's less relevant.
Yeah, it really is. There's a more direct interaction with the audience.
I love it when y'all interview yourselves.
Also, we were so stoked for this interview because when we saw you guys do the talkback, we're like, oh, they're theater nerds like us.
Yeah.
We found our people.
Oh, yeah. We can nerd out. Oh, boy.
That was question number 1.
Yeah.
Question number 2 is actually going to lead into it because you brought it up a little, and that is what turns you off about theater. So you set yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can do more.
Yeah. For somebody who has dedicated his life and career and an MFA and everything that I've ever known him to do to theater, he has a lot of things he doesn't like about it.
Yeah. Well, so I got my MFA at the Del Arte International School of Physical Theater, which is this bonkers little school up in Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a lot of, it's sort of a Lecoq inspired program. So they do a lot of styles, a lot of clown, commedia. So already, like, my bias in theater was toward, weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've always been more attracted to the things that are experimental and are not content to be straight theater. I love a good straight play, but I think the American theater of the 20th century kind of forgot that originally people went to the theater to have fun, and so the established canon is like all of the great works of 20th century American theater are heavy pieces, sort of exposing and exploring the societal decay that we're dealing with. And there's a place for that, but I think a lot of the times the theater has a tendency to shoot itself in the foot through thinking that it needs to be really serious and really relevant, when the first thing you need to do is make people happy that they went to see your play and want to see another one.
Yeah.
Right. And you can get there with heavy work, but
Yeah, but like, you know, I can see a good like piece of theater, you know, 2-3 times a year. And then I've met my quota.
Yeah.
right. Whereas you'll have and on the flip side, one feels drawn to go see something fun almost at any time.
Yeah.
And let's do more of that. But it's interesting. I was trying to formulate my response in my head based on I guess for me it's it's just kind of more personal about like, well, what turns me off as an actor? Like, what do I feel I access well, and what I feel like I don't access well? Because as an audience, I think I'm very generous. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You're not. I think it's really good to have that balance of like, I know, but as an actor, I am turned off by really psychological work. Just so that's kind of it's interestingly related to what you're saying, because I don't do well when it's really heady. I do better with the work when it's really present, really responsive, gut and immediately responsive. So like my real when I started to feel like I was good at this stuff was when I discovered improv, and then when I discovered clown and physical theater and the intersection of clown and physical work and improv, and where those intersect. I just, that's where my joy is, as opposed to scripted work, especially if it's scripted work that is reliant on a very in-depth character analysis and an in-depth psychological understanding of the person. I just, that stuff it doesn't turn me on. I don't do it well, and I don't want to do it. And I can get into it when I'm watching it if it's really, really good. It's really, really well done, of course. But it's interesting because there's a lot of that in the American theater, and there's a lot of pretension. And that's it. As an audience member, that's the one thing that if I feel like a show has its mission or its message way too on the surface and way too like, we have to get this across, I get turned off as an audience member, and just that reads as pretension to me. Whereas if there's much more going on than that, and they can, thread the message through and make you think new things and feel new things and see new perspectives, that's successful.
I get what you're saying exactly, because it's just like those psychologically heavy materials are great and they have a place, but you have to sort of you have to cherry pick them.
Yeah.
Almost. You have to like, okay, I've seen a couple fun plays. Now I have some energy. I've built up my sort of self to go see something a bit heavier.
Mm-hmm.
So
we totally understand.
Your answer was perfect, because we're like, that's very much who we are.
We don't need to deep dive into the dark night of the soul every Wednesday night. It's very.
And you hope that when you cherry pick them, that you've picked something that has done it with all of the presence of mind and respect and skill to do it well, so that it's worth going there. And I think when I think of like the handful of top shows I've seen, the ones I think of first are those ones that hit so hard, but they were so good, so good. Like Word Becomes Flesh. Like I always think of that one.
But that's
what special.
Yeah, that's
different. I mean, it was special. But it was very heavy. It was extraordinary.
I think one of my favorites is A Normal Heart. Like I got to see it on Broadway years ago now, and it was very heavy. It was very sad, but it was so well done. I was still finding myself entertained. One of my theater teachers way back when was like, theater has 3 things it's supposed to do. And I mean, like, I don't know if this is a heavy rule, but it's like entertain, enlighten, and educate. And I always feel like people forget the entertain. You know what I mean? They're so busy enlightening and educating, they forget to entertain. So
Yeah, and right now, I think we're trying to refigure that out again. I don't know. As an artist, I feel like I'm in a really like, you know, this weird, the boat, the platform boat is like, I don't know where my balance point is anymore. Those three things are a great example of like, of how to think about that problem that I'm having right now. It's like, where do I stand between educate, enlighten, and entertain? When it's harder to find the joy to entertain because you feel as if I'm not educating and enlightening, then what am I doing?
So yeah, so it's definitely you trying to balance that, but you guys did a great job. Just from our personal perspective, like Dr. Dour and Peach was one of our favorites. Like it was definitely the one that was like, oh, okay, this is new, this is weird, this is perfect. We're gonna enjoy this interview.
Day 5 of this interview if we don't keep moving on.
We're like loving like talking to you and listening to you, but we only got 2 of the 5 questions, which proves that this is going to be the best interview we've ever done because we don't have to pull out the answers. They're right there. What's a theater failure you had and what did it teach you?
I was the managing director for a small company here in DC called Faction of Fools, which specializes in commedia dell'arte. And then for a brief period, I was the artistic director as well. And then I left the company because I didn't want to do all of that stuff anymore. And artistically, the company had a whole lot of success. We did a lot of shows that I was very proud of. But the reason I mention it when you talk about failure was I think ultimately I failed to make the company that I wanted to be in charge of. There was a point at which I kind of turned around all of my expectations and went, you know what? I'm not sure I want to be running a theater company. I feel like I'm doing an enormous amount of work, not necessarily, and the positive that comes back is not necessarily coming back to me. I am a very ensemble-minded person. I generally am really comfortable sort of subsuming my identity and my expectation for personal fulfillment in like the success of the group. We hit this breaking point where I was like, okay, you know, I think I need to be a little bit more selfish. So one of the things that I've had to get comfortable about with Dr. Dour and Peach is this is ours. This benefits us. And if we want to involve other people in it and invite them, it's great. Which has meant that some of the projects that we've done, we've gotten to work with some people that we really, really love working with. But there's this whole layer of kind of responsibility when you're doing a theater company. And I mean, we're seeing it play out big time right now with the issue of representation, of like, who's in charge, who gets to tell the stories, how do you diversify the decision-making body that is actually like deciding what stories get told. And a theater company does have that responsibility. And I was finding that I didn't want to have that responsibility.
But that wasn't the crux of it.
No.
You don't imply that you left because you didn't want to have the responsibility of diversifying the decision-making body.
No.
The burnout was way more of a factor.
Yeah.
I mean, the burnout was very real and it had built up for years before he became artistic director. And then he just basically, he just exploded. He just disintegrated in a small puff of ash and then picked himself up off the floor and said, I shouldn't be running a theater company. But because then also what I think the word responsibility is related to a lot of the other things too, because there's responsibility to the community of actors who you are pulling in and and who, you know, you want to work with and they want to work for you, but you can't afford to pay them. You can't afford to hire them all. You especially can't afford to hire the equity actors. It wasn't just because this crisis right now, you're right, would be particularly challenging.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the crux of it.
Yeah, no, we weren't dealing with those
we
issues.
were dealing much more so with responsibility towards the deaf community. Years it was in residence at Gallaudet University, and that includes during the time that we were so heavily involved. And at Gallaudet we had certain responsibilities to fulfill the contract and have students who were deaf in the shows, and of course we have to provide interpretation, and then also that really plays into the whole thing of like, how are these stories being told, who's making these decisions, what are the stories about, how do they represent deaf people, how do they represent American Sign Language. So we had a lot of responsibility to that community to do that in a conscientious and generous way, while we were fumbling through it like, you know, a bunch of hearing fools, because we were new to most of us, other than one very crucial staff member, the rest of us were totally new to the deaf community. We only had one person on staff who like was in and got it, and she had to be our you know, she had to guide us along. But Toby was saying, I just don't want you to think that Toby quit because he didn't want to diversify the staff.
If I had people who wanted to be on the staff,
Please come and work for
I
us.
want to do all terrible work.
That's a really long
Okay.
answer. I can't think of a really good example of, I don't know, maybe that just speaks to how I perceive the word failure. I'm an optimist at heart, and I think maybe I'm not so good at going at looking at something that it has happened in the past with clarity. I'm more likely to go, that was fine, it was good, I learned things, it was all good, it ended up great, everybody had a good time. So I'm not sure I'm so good at, I don't know. He's constantly reminding me if I'm in a dip or a crisis point, related to whatever it might be. He's the one who goes, Rachel, you have experienced this before. This is not new. You have had emotions like this.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We had a show, one of our very first Fringe show that we did at the DC, the Capitol Fringe in what? When was that?
Which one are you talking about?
Our first one.
Oh, 2014 for
14.
Dr. Dour and Peach.
Yeah.
14.
We had a now infamous moment where she was doing something with my guitar, and the straps fell off, because they do that occasionally, and put them back on wrong. So this thing has two straps.
And he wasn't in the room.
I did not see what she did.
The bit was that he would leave the room and I would interact with the audience a little bit. But that time I decided I would put the guitar on, and I hadn't done that before. And I put it on, and then the straps fell off, and then I put them back on. So he didn't see any of that happen.
So what ensued was me not being able to get my guitar back on to play the next song because I couldn't figure out what she had done with it. Everything I did made the problem worse. And we have this on video. It is a 7-minute space of time, 7 minutes of stage time out of a 40-minute show of us trying to fix the guitar.
Oh no.
It was awful, and it was hilarious.
It was hilarious. We had a very kind audience. They loved everything that happened.
They thought it was amazing.
You know,
and we were just
worse
like,
and worse and worse.
that was on purpose.
And I found myself going away from that show going, this is exactly why you have things thrown at you in clown training. I wasn't bothered. We were just like, okay, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. So like the sort of forced failure of a lot of theatrical training really does set you up to take the inevitable onstage failures that you will have in stride.
And revel in them as much as possible.
Like,
Okay, want to move to the next question?
Yeah, we can. Okay, same question, but success. What is a success in your acting theater career, and what did it teach you? I know, I'm just the miserablest questions.
I know, like I brighten up. I was like, oh, good, that sounds like fun to answer.
oh, you better take that one.
You're like, he's suffering. You're like, yay, finally.
Yay! Well, I think I'm going to talk about the web series because that was really pivotal for me personally, and of course it was also pivotal as a new medium for our duo. Sure. Well, we had been wanting to do something that was like an online visual medium for a while, but hadn't figured out what that would be. And then it all came together actually quite organically once we started talking to a woman who we met who's a videographer, professionally a videographer, and we approached her about doing a music video. And then the conversation just developed that, like, instead of doing a music video, because it would be too much work, we decided to do a web series. But we all got very excited by that and brought in more people who were who have worked with us for years to help fill in all that crew need that you have for making a video project, lighting and sound and extra hands on deck and continuity, and obviously we needed a set and everything. So we pulled in some of our favorite friends and who are also theater artists to help with that, and we ended up having a little steering committee of 6 people who we shared the dreaming duty, the duty of creating the story and deciding on the story as a little circle of 6. And we ended up not having a director. It was a stupid decision, but it worked out. A lot of major decisions collaboratively, and then broke down the minor decisions amongst the 6 of us. You need a very, very particular set of personalities who have a certain amount of trust and mutual vocabulary and mutual history, which we had a lot of with almost everyone. We had a lot of history and all of that good stuff. The reason I bring it up for this, though, not only did we feel like the web series was really successful artistically, because it was way more beautiful than we thought it would be, because they raised the bar. Our Sharon, the cinematographer, could up the bar as far as all of the visual storytelling in this way, and our other collaborators could create the set and props and lighting that put it up at a level that we didn't know we were capable of. And of course, then we were more in charge of the writing between the 2 of us. And then I stepped more into the role of the manager, especially once we were done and we were doing a lot of the like post production and the kind of cleanup stuff. And I was reflecting back and like, going back through emails or finding how did we make this decision on this thing, and how because that's gonna dictate how do we want the final cut to look. You know what I mean? Got to go back to the beginning. What was the seed of that idea, and how did we come around to da-da-da-da-da-da? So when we're doing this edit and we're all deciding how the edit should look, what do we really, really need out of it? But doing all of that, for me, that process, I realized I had a huge, huge personal success on the project, where I have not considered myself in the past to be decisive or to be organized or to be a person who's good at coordinating other people. I have long known that I thrive in chaos, and I thrive in the moment, and I can thrive in like rallying a group of people and getting a whole lot of people's attention at the same time to buy something from me. But organizationally and as a decision maker and as the person who drove the train, it was a very, very big success for me. And I didn't realize I was the one driving until afterwards. And I didn't realize just how much of the web series was my decisions, because there were lots and lots of that steering committee decisions, but then there's just a million decisions to make. And I feel like I more than anybody made it happen. So it feels a little weird to say it, but I actually think that I am the one who decided it was happening and it was going to happen, and I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to push this schedule, all these schedules that don't work. I'm going to slam them together, and I'm going to mold them with my fists into a schedule that actually works. And that helped me to overcome some of the other things that I don't think of as my strengths.
Yeah, I think after that project, we've now moved to a place where you are officially our producer.
I think it took taking a really big bite out of something for me to feel okay with kind of standing up straight and planting my feet on the ground and going, this is my role and I am capable of this and I can do this. The whole time I think I just thought it was Toby. I thought Toby was doing it. It was really weird, right? Like while it was happening, I thought Toby was in charge. And then at the end I realized I was in charge. It's not a story I'm really excited about telling in terms of like, this is the narrative of the web series, but it is my personal narrative in relation to the web series.
Hello.
Yeah. You want to say hi to my friends?
These are
Oh, these are Ricky and Dana.
Nope, we're not interested.
Well,
We have one last question. I mean, you guys can talk further than that, but our last question is: if they made a rule named after in 40 years, kids open up their textbooks and they made a rule named after you guys. What is that rule?
Oh, that's really good.
We've gotten that reaction a lot.
I don't know. What should our rule be? So, all right. Again, you touched a nerve and reminded me of graduate school, where I started keeping a running list of rules of successful ensemble work.
I want drawing.
Okay, you want to draw?
One of my first rules was, don't sit down in the rehearsal room.
Why?
If
Love that.
Why was that?
sits down, then you start talking about it. And you're all tired because you're doing physical theater, so you don't want to get up again.
Oh, yeah.
And then the rehearsal stops and you start talking about what it means. And that's the kiss of death while you're like talk about what it means like once you've got something. I think the Dr. Dour and Peach rule is it's not quite enough yet.
Oh, right.
You're satisfied with it? Well, okay. Well, can we add a visual twist?
How can we make it more?
Yeah, just make it more.
Yeah.
We have kept you guys forever, and you have been wonderful. And this was fun. Like, you're the first interview where we asked the 5 questions and it answered 1,000.
Hey guys, if you like what we just did, there's going to be plenty more coming up. Please like, comment, subscribe. Our Venmo is in the description. Please support us if you can. Our cats need the money.